episode number 136 of the LSR podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. With me, I have Dustin Gowker. I have Adam Candy. You can follow them on the Twitter machine for free, and you should, at Dustin Gowker, at Adam Candy, 2 E's, no Y. And if you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Google, we're on Stitcher, all the different places you get your podcast. So please go in, subscribe, rate, and review. We really do appreciate all of the love. Of course, we will talk the big game, the large game, the superb owl, however you want to say it. We'll talk about that and what we've gotten so far in the first few days after Super Bowl Sunday. We will talk about New York. We'll talk about California. We have an interesting piece up on Bet365 that went live today over on Legal Sports Report as well. And then, of course, Adam will give us the rundown, quick state updates as well. But guys, let's talk about it. We are 3 days removed from, the big day for sportsbooks, where they know they're going to acquire the most customers. They know they're going to get the most handle in a single day. They understand that this is, basically the holy grail at this point of not only selling yourself to your customers, but also trying to get some retention, trying to maybe even get some customers back for some of these states that have been live for over a year, where this wasn't their first Super Bowl with new customers and whatnot. So let's kick things off here. Dustin, there were several different projections as to how much handle the collective states would take in. We've started to get some numbers. I know Nevada's already come out with what they did for the Super Bowl, which was a record for them, at least as far as handle, not as far as hold. But what are we looking at, and what do you think we're going to hit?
Yeah, I mean, the over-under we talked about last week was $1 billion. It's a pretty good number, nice round number to do when you're thinking about this. It's obviously not going to be so round in the future, but yeah, we had like about $500 million last year for everybody who reported. So far, we already, with states that have reported, have $473 million wagered on the Super Bowl. For whatever reason, states like to just report the Super Bowl. Sometimes states that we don't even get a whole lot of information from otherwise report this really quickly, so we have an idea of what's going on. Right now, Nevada is the largest state still for the Super Bowl in terms of betting, about $180 million wagered on the game there in Nevada. We know this from past experience, that even though it lags on the mobile front, that we do know just more people bet on the Super Bowl, and people go there just to bet on the Super Bowl. So Nevada's still the king. We are waiting, obviously, for the big one out there. New York has not yet reported its Super Bowl numbers. We should see that on Friday when they routinely release their numbers, but that will tell us whether we get to that magic number of $1 billion. Either way, a lot of money is bet on the Super Bowl. Like you said, this is the biggest time for acquisition, the single biggest day for acquisition for sportsbooks, and getting people in the virtual sportsbook. And we'll be curious to see what this grows this year and obviously into the future.
Yeah, Adam, as long as California doesn't legalize anytime soon, Nevada's still going to do well for the Super Bowl. I'm sure you saw, around town and whatnot. I mean, I do a show out of the South Point. The South Point was ridiculously packed, ridiculously hopping with guests. I talked to a couple different people at properties up and down the Strip. They were at 95+% capacity and all that. So the mask mandate went down in Nevada as well, which probably made people want to come and hang out a little bit more and all that. And as long as California does not legalize, Nevada's always going to do well when it comes to the Super Bowl. Certainly these like big one-off events.
And that's always been the reputation, right? Nevada and one-off events like March Madness first weekend, like Super Bowl, is always going to be a destination no matter what happens elsewhere. And as we look at these numbers, for those out there, and I know who you are, and I keep track of you, who don't like when we talk about handle versus revenue, I'm going to point to Nevada, because what we always hear from people when we talk about handle is, well, it includes the promo money. It includes the promo dollars. Guess what Nevada doesn't have? Any promo dollars at all. That is real handle. That is actual money wagered. So even if New York comes in at $200 million on the Super Bowl, that includes some of the promo dollars that people don't want to talk about. Nevada, that is all cold hard cash. I was out at one of the sports books on Sunday doing a program, and much more full than I expected to see it, and obviously great for the state of Nevada. Let's not forget about New Jersey as well. The hold went down in New Jersey, but We've been looking for information from New Jersey to say, all right, what is the New York effect? Is there going to be a New York effect, or are you growing an entirely new market? New Jersey's handle went up by a solid 20% this year, and it's not like anything really significantly changed additively to that market. So I think it's a really good sign for what we're going to see, in those numbers as we record on Wednesday are coming out in just a little bit here on what the handle was overall for the month of January in New Jersey. Good sign for the Garden State.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we look at these numbers that we do have sitting here. I mean, you see like a Delaware at $1.5 million. You see a Mississippi at 6.3. Of course, they don't have mobile across the entire state. You see kind of a New Hampshire at 7.7 and Oregon at 5. We were talking about this whenever Louisiana went live. We know one guy is worth 9.5 million for that state just alone. So it will be certainly interesting to see what the final numbers for the Super Bowl look like coming out of Louisiana when one guy eclipsed what Oregon and New Hampshire and Mississippi and Delaware and all that did in the entire state with the one furniture salesman. We'll just put it that way, Adam.
I was gonna say I had significantly less than $10 million down the here in Oregon.
Yes.
Well, I was a little bit concerned about how much Dustin had contributed to that. One place that we don't have a report from, Matt, that we didn't mention, and maybe it's better that we didn't. Oh, DC, you are just so precocious. Gambit always gives us reasons to talk about what is wrong with Gambit, but this time, Gambit and the DC lottery really outdid themselves. On Super Bowl Sunday, if you opened the Gambit DC app, the only district-wide sports betting app available in Washington, D.C., you got a black screen and an error message on iPhones. Why did that happen? Because they didn't put in the required information for the update with Apple, and Apple basically yanked them on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
Look, I get it. Things are tough. Times are difficult in Washington, D.C. Everything's gridlocked. I get it. How do you miss the Super Bowl? How do you screw up Super Bowl Sunday? And then the spokesperson had the audacity to point to the fact of all the retail locations that were still open. Are you kidding me? And the fact that they were still available on Android. Cool. I'll see if I can get it on my Motorola Razr.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? How did you let this happen?
I'll tell you how they let it happen. It's because they haven't realized how to do this yet in any form or capacity, Adam. They figured out that they're like, you know what? If we're going to be bad at this, let's be the absolute worst at it. And so far, so good, right? So far, so good.
Good job. Good effort.
Yes, good job and good effort. Dustin, let's talk about New York just in general, since they went statewide mobile here. Listen, we've said this a couple of different times here, but we knew this was going to be big. We knew that it was going to be the sports betting king of the world when it was, before it was all said and done. I don't think any of us thought that it would get there in 30 days. And I certainly don't think any of us, and even if we did think that there was a possibility for it to get there in 30 days, I don't think we had any idea that it could reach this type of level in the first 30 days.
Yeah. 30 days, almost $2 billion wagered. Just a crazy number. It really does point to the quick adoption of legal betting options, really, right? And increasingly so in states. Like there is this critical. What I see as the bigger picture in like Arizona and New York and even Louisiana is that sports betting is just more a part of what people see. You see sportsbook ads now on the Super Bowl or just NFL games. Like this adoption is happening quicker and quicker as more states open up, and these launches. You're capturing, whereas you might have been muted or just a part of the growth, and then you'd see more growth as time went on. You're seeing a huge adoption right away in New York. That's why you're seeing these huge numbers, because other launches we've seen, or New Jersey has been a relatively slow burn. Had a couple operators in 2018, has grown the market kind of organically. Arizona and New York opened up, and bam, we have this huge critical mass of people just betting right away. So that's the interesting part of. When you even pull back from New York. But yeah, New York, obviously already the largest sports betting market by far, not even close at this point. Even New Jersey is going to report, like Adam said, but it's not going to be New York size for sure. It will be interesting to see whether New Jersey is seeing any kind of pullback. It's interesting to say that the Super Bowl, they actually did better than they did last year, even with New York in the mix. So there's a lot going on here, but I think the larger story is just the adoption of legal and regulated sportsbooks is really taking hold as states open up.
Adam, I talked to Johnny Avello, who runs the sportsbook over at DraftKings, and I asked him that very thing about, did you guys see a big pullback, not necessarily a big pullback, but a pullback from New Jersey because of going legal in New York? And, he kind of said the thing that I think that we've alluded to a few different times on this podcast, that if you're not really familiar with the Northeast, like, there's a lot of people in New Jersey. Like, you don't really think of it. Like, you don't really think of it as being one of the bigger states from a population standpoint. And he's like, yeah, I mean, certainly there's going to be some of the bigger customers that, that are really wanting to bet, that were making that drive all the time and or taking the train or whatever it was. And they'll probably stay home and not head over to Jersey. But Jersey in and of itself has a lot of people in it, and certainly comes from a betting culture, and certainly is well aware of what was going on before legalization and all that stuff over there. So yes, there's going to be some sort of pullback in Jersey. I think we all agree, but it might not be as drastic. It might not be as big as we actually thought.
I like your reference to the betting culture as those Satriales and the Bada Bing are where everyone's hanging out to get their action down. New Jersey is obviously a heavily populated state. And I think that's something that us West Coast elites don't always remember, is that the Northeast is densely populated.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't, because I'm just not familiar, obviously where I come from, I'm not familiar with the populations in those states up there. Right. So like when that came all about and you guys were talking about how many people actually live within the state, it really did kind of blow me away.
Yeah, it's just part of the fabric of the Northeast is that it is a very small state, densely populated. And this time of year, it's cold, it's snowing, you're indoors, you're looking for something to do. It's not all that hard to have a captive audience for these sports books to try to get people in. And just to put it in perspective, when we talk about New York eclipsing $2 billion in handle in the first 30 days, keep in mind, it took us nearly 4 years of legal sports betting to get to New Jersey cracking $1 billion in handle for 1 month. This is the first 30 days in New York. So when people talk about these crown jewel states of New York, Florida, Texas, California, understand that as hard as the road is going to be to legalization, as we've already seen in Florida, and we're going to talk about with California, the push is going to be massive to get this done because of the payoff is equal.
The biggest takeaway we hear is we have to bring Matt's geography corner back. We have to quiz.
Yeah, I know.
It's been a while on that. Yeah,
it really has. Which states are next to which states and all of that. I know. It was something we'll have to work in here as we start talking about some of these other states that are going to legalize or that may or may not legalize here in the coming 12 to 18 months, something like that. All right, so let's roll here on to another one of those crown jewels that we were just talking about, Adam, and it's California. I said until they get legalization, Nevada really doesn't have anything to worry about. We saw, the tourism here was off the charts this past week. It's mostly California people. They always show it every single time that Monday following the Super Bowl of the miles long cars trying to get back to California and whatnot. So that said, there is a battle trying to get some sort of something done in California. Where do we stand with all that?
I'm going to put this in poker terms, which is going to just make you guys crazy because I'm obviously not the poker guy here. But if we saw the sportsbook operators put $100 million bet down on the table, the tribes have called. There is another $100 million going into the pot here as the 3 tribes in California have formed a political action committee. There's $100 million pledged. We've already seen roughly 2/5 of that put in to fight against the operator-backed initiative. So, look, you could have as many as 4 different initiatives on the ballot in California. Realistically, there are 2 that have a major chance. One that is the tribal-backed initiative that has been going for quite a while now, and that would essentially limit it to on-premises, right? You wouldn't have mobile throughout the state. Well, unsurprisingly, big operators like FanDuel and DraftKings would like there to be statewide mobile, and so they are pushing an initiative of their own, collecting signatures to try to get that on the ballot. They've pledged $100 million. The tribes, including the San Manuel tribe, which you're familiar with from California. They're a major operator down there. They just bought the Palms in Las Vegas, and so they're going to have a major presence here as well. We have at least $200 million in just political action pledged on this at this point, and I wouldn't say that we're done, right? Like when we see what other interests want to get involved in this and just how massive the California market is, and like we just said, what New York has already shown is the potential for these huge states, get ready. 2022 is going to be an active year in California.
Dustin, we've talked a lot on the pod about, are there any players out there that can honestly come in and compete at this point? We see the kind of stranglehold that DraftKings and FanDuel, and to a lesser extent BetMGM, even though they're doing well in specific states out there, are doing. We kind of know where that second tier is as well. Is there anybody that's lurking in that third tier that could move into the second tier, possibly even move in to that top tier? And we have speculated, we have kept saying, well, there is Bet365. And if you're not familiar with Bet365, it is a big British company that's been around for over 20 years. So they're not some Johnny come lately or anything like that. I mean, they've been around, I think it's since 99 or something like that, 2000. And if you're familiar with the gaming industry, you understand what a behemoth they are in the betting industry. That being said, listen, they kind of like, I don't even know if you would say dipped a toe in over here in the States, really. It's kind of like maybe just a toenail is kind of been dipped in the water and trying to figure out, if this is something they were going to do. And apparently Brad has a nice little piece up over at LSR kind of trying to figure out, are they really ever going to actually dive into this market and see if they can actually play around with some of these guys that are already a little bit more established?
Yeah, let's start here. It is the sleeping giant. It is. It has ambitions on the U.S. It has not really done a whole lot. It has, it was in New Jersey, licensed Colorado, has some deals, had a deal to be in New York. Obviously, we know that didn't work out because they are not in New York. I have a deal in Texas should Texas open up. So they set the stage for something. But here's what Bet365 could tomorrow spend $1 zillion to compete with DraftKings and FanDuel and all of that. It does not feel like, obviously, that is a great use of its money right now to go into the zero-sum game where everybody's paying $1 million for customers and this huge marketing blitz and paying for customers and all of that. So 365 says, well, I mean, again, I'm sure we've talked about this on the podcast. You're going to wait and see what happens and not engage in trying to paying all this money to be a part of the market right now. As some analysts that we follow on the Twitter like to say, that what is today does not mean what is tomorrow. That we are still, again, we talk about the sports betting industry like it's over 4 years in, not these three biggest states, not here other than New York. There's a lot of ground to be covered still in sports betting in the United States, and 365 can be that, they have both the war chest and the product to come in and compete at when and if it chooses to do so. That still leads you to say, like, why are they not doing anything now? They're basically just kind of sitting here and waiting. And great read from Brad about what's going on and what people think about 365. It is the thing that people talk about most, other than offshores and whether they're going to someday come into the fold. I'm still skeptical on that, but 365 will be a player, I think, sometime in the United States. It's just not today.
Adam, just to kind of give people a real kind of snapshot of this, when we say they could come in and they could spend, a ton of money, I mean, like this really is truly a global gaming powerhouse. Denise Coates, who is the head of Bet365, there was an article that just came out a few days ago. I didn't even know this article was going to be, I didn't know Brad's article was going to be running on LSR. I just happened to read this a few days ago. She paid like the most taxes in all of Europe this year, to the tune of $481 million in taxes that she paid. Apparently has a net worth of like $8.4 billion. And of course, this is just her family. There are other people who are principals and whatever and things like that who have a bunch of money as well. So, I mean, it is just to kind of give you the scope of everything. We're not talking about like, oh yeah, this is a company that they could go raise a couple $100 million and they could really make a splash. Like, no, man, they've got that cash, and they've got that cash like sitting in the bank if they decided they wanted to come do something.
Well, what that leads to is a very important note that Brad has in the article. This is a privately owned company. and they have more flexibility in the way they move because of their privately owned company. They don't have to deal with the whims of the market, right? They are not beholden to shareholders in the way that DraftKings and some others are, the giant casino companies like MGM and Caesars. They can choose to do what they want to do when they want to do it because of the liquidity they have, because of the structure that they have. Now, if they want to wait, more power to them. But I will say, I talked to an analyst a couple of months ago someone I trust, someone who's generally pretty reliable, who said he has heard 10 states this year. Now, that's not the first time we've heard something that sounds like that, but it's the first time I've heard the groundswell get to the size that it seems to be right now. So whether it really ends up being 10 states, who knows? But I think one thing that 365 might look at, and it goes to another piece that we have up at Legal Sports Report right now, is Super Bowl betting trends. And what we heard from Johnny Avello, as you mentioned, what we heard from some other folks who are involved in U.S. sports betting, is that we finally are seeing in-game really start to pick up on a day like the Super Bowl, where in-game is making up close to half of the handle. I think one thing 365 is going to wait and see is just what is that adoption of in-game and when can they come in and make that kind of impact, right?
Yeah.
Because what we've seen is throughout the U.S. market, everybody loves their parlays, their same-game parlays, et cetera, et cetera. But what 365 can do better than everybody else is in-game. That's what they have down to a science. And so that, I think, is sort of one of those trends I would watch in the U.S. to say, when's 365 going to come? Well, as in-game picks up, I think that becomes more of a reason for them to get involved.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very interesting. Certainly something that we will monitor over the next year or so, because it is the company out there that, again, doesn't have to go raise any money, doesn't have to answer to people. They can do whatever they want to, should they decide to do that. And that will be a very, very interesting shift, perhaps, in the landscape of the United States if they decide to do that. Adam, as always, buddy, take us home with some quick hitters on the states.
Well, we talked about that densely populated Northeast region. Let's go up to Massachusetts for a minute, where the governor and the House Speaker took the opportunity on Super Bowl Sunday to say, hey, we've put some bills in. And in fact, the House has passed one of those bills multiple times to have sports betting in Massachusetts. Why don't we have it? And the response, or lack thereof, from the Senate president, because that's where the bills have gone to die in Massachusetts, was shrug emoji. So Massachusetts saw almost 30% of New Hampshire bets come from Massachusetts on the Super Bowl for DraftKings. That was a very ham-handed way of saying more than a quarter of New Hampshire bets with DraftKings were coming from people going from Massachusetts addresses. Will Massachusetts happen this year? We continue to hope that that some cooler heads prevail in terms of being able to get that done. Beyond that, look at Iowa for a second. We saw Iowa's first full year of revenue and handle without the in-person registration requirement, and it was massive. Unsurprisingly, enormous growth in handle in Iowa, and just another reason that as states look at in-person registration requirements, they will see the impracticality of them in terms of what they do in terms of restricting handle, and that no, it is not cannibalizing land-based casinos if you have online registration, remote registration for your sports betting accounts. Huge year in Indiana, I should say month in Indiana in terms of growth. Handle hits an all-time high in January in Indiana. And so interesting to see how that gets affected next month, because we're only about 3 weeks away from Illinois once and for all dropping its in-person registration requirement. Now, of course, during COVID, you had a lot of remote signups because of the lifting of the restriction by Governor Pritzker, but we're getting to the point now with Illinois where it's going to be a completely open market, and we'll start to see just how it can compete with New York when all of these books are able to go and get customers the way that they normally can get customers, because BetMGM is one that was on the sidelines. It waited 16 months for its license application to be approved. I'll go ahead and stroke my chin and ask why that happened, and we'll just say political pressures are what they are. That will be another huge sports book to come in and push that Illinois market as the in-person registration requirement goes away.
Dustin, before we get out of here, what is your bold prediction here for 2022? What is the boldest prediction that you can make for 2022 in our industry?
I mean, I guess the California ballot measure passes and we have sports betting next year. That would be, I'm not sure. Am I predicting that, or am I just guess? Like that's like, if you wanted to have the hottest take, I guess that's what I would have. Something gets through, and you get some sort of legal sports betting in California, like we were talking about earlier. Infinity money is being spent for and against this, but I guess that would be it for my hottest take that I could possibly give you.
Adam, your bold prediction for the rest of this year.
I'm going to give you a hot take and then a hotter take.
All right.
So the hot take is actually doubling down on my prediction that came true from last year that ESPN was going to dive in a real way into sports betting. My bold prediction is that at least the groundwork will be laid for ESPN Sportsbook in a real way by the end of this year. My slightly less hot, well, you know what? Maybe this will be hotter. I don't know. One of the top 7 or 8 operators is going to consolidate this year. I think that we are at the point where, especially if a bigger op like 365 jumps in, I think the writing is going to be on the wall for one of these 3 or 4% market share operators in terms of where the future really is for them. I'm not saying who just yet, so don't go buying stock, but I do think that's a possibility by the end of the year.
Neither one of you said DraftKings, FanDuel, PointsBet, whatever is going to end up in Nevada. Neither one of y'all said that. That's unfortunate. I was hoping.
Join me, Matthew. Join me when I've spent the last 2 weekends in Colorado. Join me in the bliss that is Sportsbook living outside Nevada.
We'll just get frequent flyer miles every weekend. Just pop up there. It'll be so fantastic. Guys, everything that we talk about here, you can find over on legalsportsreport.com. Go in, read the great words that Adam and team are putting up on the site over there. Be sure and follow Adam on the Twitter machine at Adam Candy, 2 E's, no Y, Dustin Galker at Dustin Galker on the Twitter machine. And if you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. We really do appreciate all of those subscribes and rates and reviews and all the stuff like that. It does help us climb the charts and more people can find this here podcast. So thanks for that as well. For Dustin, for Adam, I'm Matt. Talk to you guys next week.